Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is more Bad Business gameplay, and in this footage I will be showcasing the new L85 light machine gun of all things. So you may see some commentaries where I lament the choice of this being the next weapon coming to the game, purely based off the fact that it is an Enfield assault rifle, the platform that this is based off of, this gun, and it's notoriously for being a pretty legendary weapon for the wrong reasons. And of course, a fantasy version of this gun has nothing to do with is it good in real life or not good, and I'm very happy to say that I think the L85 is a really fun gun that they've added into Bad Business, and it's a welcome addition here. It's also in a category of guns that doesn't get a lot of love, and I don't really understand that. You see a lot of people using the snipers, you see a lot of people using the rifles, the assault rifles, the shotguns, the submachine guns, even the pistols, but you don't see LMGs, and it's probably a good thing, because the LMGs are one of the best classes in the game, and people are absolutely sleeping on them. If I was to postulate as to why they are neglected, I think it has to be the movement speed. Bad Business is a very fast game, and people love using the movement to move even faster, so the fact that these guns do come with a bit of a penalty is definitely a detriment to a lot of people trying to use them. And that's where the L85 comes in. So this is probably the fastest LMG in the game. It also has a bunch of conversion capacity to make it even faster than it already is. As it stands by default, it's still, I think, just as fast, if not faster, than most of the LMGs. And that is a really cool thing, because the one thing that you struggle the most with these weapons is to make them feel fast. The attachments in the game, except for lightweight and perhaps rare stocks, there aren't many options that give you extra mobility, and I'd love to see more of that in the game for big penalties, because mobility should come at a cost, and a lot of the attachments don't really give you too many options to do that. I would love to make it so that the gun really suffered in some place, but did a little bit better on the speed front, because if you add speed to LMGs, there's really nothing that can stop them. And this gun has extra barrels too. It has the shorter barrel to turn it into more of an assault rifle, and you can use that with a little bit of a damage drop off. You can also use a longer barrel, which will increase your damage drop off, and turn it into the full-blown Big Daddy, Big Barrel Boy of LMGs. And then there's also a damage conversion on the ammunition type, where you can change the current ammunition from a large magazine of 45, an even bigger magazine of 75, and then you get to use, I think it's 25 rounds, but with extra damage as you convert it into some higher caliber. And just that level of flexibility with this weapon is really, really fun, because it gives you a lot to play with and a lot to mess around with, and I had a ton of fun with this game, unlocking the attachments for this gun and finding my setup and experimenting with everything that I could. I still haven't, at this moment, got to level 52 on the gun to get the damage conversion, and it's the only attachment that I'm missing right now that I actually want. And I'm hoping that when I do get that, it's going to showcase the gun in a different light and let me see all kinds of different setups. But right now, all I can speak of is what I've used and some feelings on the gun, and I haven't even mentioned the best part of this weapon that I'm using. This weapon has very different damage drop-off compared to almost every other class of gun in the game, except for the one that just killed me. So if you know anything about damage over distance in Bad Business, the more distance between you and your target, the weaker your weapon gets, unless you're using a sniper rifle. Sniper rifles in this game are the most skillless dog shit, and I fucking hate them, because they don't have any kind of ballistics on them, so you don't have to govern where the bullet goes, you don't have to account for people's distance or where they're moving, so when you fire at them, you just essentially get hit scanned for free unless they're sprinting. If they're sprinting, you have to lead them, but at a distance, if you fire, your bullet goes where you aim, and none of the other guns in this game work like that, and it makes them a lot more difficult to use because of it, whereas the snipers just get bullshit for free. And the headshot hitbox in this game is so big that not getting headshots with a sniper rifle is almost a bloody miracle. So they have an entire subcategory of weapons that have an incredibly massive advantage on everything else, because you can hit somebody 5, 6, 7 times at a distance and be very accurate with an automatic weapon, and they hit you once in the head with a Dragunov and you're probably dead. And it's one of those things that I'll never agree with and I'll never understand, because they shouldn't give people easy free kills. It winds me up. But this gun shows that they might be addressing and thinking about this as a precedent, because this gun's damage drop-off only drops off, I think, to about 30, 35. And 30, 35 is basic assault rifle damage. It's insane at a distance. And if you look at the graphs usually have their designated area where the gun should work and work well. Then it has a reduction gradually on a slope all the way down to the ranges where the gun should be reduced. And then it will just continue on that reduced amount. And all of them have like a steady decline or a steep decline depending on how fast they fire and what have you. This gun has a very small dip and then it's just persistent across the board. And as I mentioned, the only gun close to this is the sniper rifles. And it's really interesting because I love the idea of giving the guns more range to make the long range game in Bad Business a lot more fun. Because if you were to ask people, I think, what is the range that you enjoy the most shooting? It's probably going to be just out of close range and just before long range, because if you get too close, a lot of people struggle with up close aim because it's a lot more difficult to do. The adjustments are bigger, are wider, you have to swing around a lot. And then if you get out of that accustomed, comfortable range, the ballistics start to hurt you because the bullets are showing their speed and their muzzle velocity, and you have to start leading it and what have you, and putting in all those interesting mechanics that make the gunplay very skillful, but very difficult at first until you've adjusted. So with this damage drop-off, it's going to make it so that you stand more of a chance in those long-range fights. And I love it. I absolutely love it. That being said, I haven't really felt it. And this is probably something that someone's going to go, oh, that's insane, how can you have not felt it? It's such a ridiculously strong gun, it needs to be nerfed. And I think the reason why it's easy for me not to feel it a lot of the times is because I play on really high ping. Like, most of my lobbies in this game are 100 ping. That's a good connection for me. Some of them are 300, some of them are 150, 180, all over the place. And it doesn't matter where I connect. You know, I have business quality internet. I can ping to Germany for 20 ping in Battlefield 5, but in this game, the Hess server gives me like fucking 132, and I don't know why. It must be the Roblox infrastructure. But fundamentally, what I'm trying to say is I've got used to playing this game on a pretty beefy latency, and any other game would frustrate the living shit out of me and I wouldn't do it. But in this game, it feels okay. It doesn't feel great, it doesn't feel as good as the private lobbies do. You know, it doesn't feel as good when you've got 30 ping when you're in your home server. But my home servers are always so dead when I play, there's no reason to even do them. So with this gun at a range, it still feels like I have to shoot people a lot. And that's the only thing I can really say when it comes to a negative in this gun, is that the damage over range that they're promoting, I've not really felt it. And obviously compared to an SMG at that kind of range, you're going to definitely feel it there, but with what that number says and how it should be translated into the game, I expected it to be more lethal at range. And the thing that I did notice the most with this gun was at close range, it just absolutely obliterates people. It's really, really strong and really fun too. As I started off on the start of this video, LMGs get ignored in this game. The first LMG you get was one of my favourite guns, the M249 I think it's called. I got it to level 44 and it was my most used gun, because it just had tons of ammunition, and when you've got that much ammo, it forces you to just sit down and shoot. And the gun didn't have the best hip fire, so it was really nice to have all those rounds, and I ended up having some of the most fun I've ever had in Bad Business using that gun. And because that gun was so fun, by the time I got the Ares Shrike, I knew the Shrike was going to be really fun too, and then I put that one on and I had a great time with it as well. And then we move on to the MG42, which I think was I think that's the LMG that's easiest to hate, because it shoots really quickly, it doesn't have the biggest magazine, it does feel pretty slow, but it's also really, really good. And if you start using it in the right places and you get used to it, you can do some crazy things, because it's got a 900 plus fire rate. That's like having a P90 in your pocket, only this thing has, I think, 65 rounds and a higher damage profile, so it's really, really strong. And then I purchased the Scar Hammer, which I think is probably the most dangerous LMG of them all, because it hits like a truck, but it has a ramp-up fire speed. And I didn't like the gun that much, because I felt like that the ramp-up speed was just a bit too frustrating for a player who plays as fast as I do. And I think that the Scar, if you're willing to get that gun firing, it can be an absolutely monstrous weapon. But I would love to see attachments on that gun that get rid of the ramp-up speed, but maybe lower its damage or its capacity or something, and I'd have a lot more fun with it, because for some reason that was the gun I thought I'd love the most in the LMGs, and it was the one that I didn't like, even though I know from using that gun it's absolutely incredible. It is a really strong gun. And speaking of really strong guns, this one. L85. Some people have mentioned that it should be nerfed. I think they've done a great job of balancing this gun. It has a lot of recoil, it has a lot of horizontal recoil, and even when you put a bunch of things on it to try and counter that, you can still feel it. So, as much as this gun is strong and it will do really well for you, you still have to be the person being the prime mover. You still have to have the hand to guide the gun to make it work and make it be successful. And I think the hipfire... You know what? I really don't know where to stand on the hipfire. There's times when this gun's amazing, there's times when this gun doesn't hit anything. And you can put attachments on to make it a little bit better, but there are just these moments where it feels like the gun can fail you. And I think all hipfire can do that, so it's not the gun's fault. But you can get that unlucky hipfire that is the most frustrating thing in the world. But I think all considered, they've done a great job with this gun. It has something for every range, it has something for potentially every playstyle, and it's strong without feeling like it cheats. And there are certain guns in this game that definitely feel like cheat codes. This can be one of them if you're accurate and they're close up, but I feel like it sits in a really, really good niche now where it's strong, and some of the other guns are definitely weaker than it, but it's strong in a way it should be strong, not in a way that makes me wish they hadn't overtuned it so much. But yeah, L85, ladies and gentlemen, a fantastic gun. This is in its standard variation. I'll be making a video with the short barrel variation and with the long barrel variation, and potentially with the different ammo type, just to showcase my thoughts on the different versions. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.